Time's 3 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get going. I want to respect your time. I appreciate you taking the time to come here. This is Guy Strout, Superintendent at Dayton. We also have Martha Landman, who's the manager in charge. I don't know what your official title is.
Administrator.
For the Columbia County Health Department. Good. And what I thought I'd do is kind of go through what the agenda is. If you participated last Monday, the first part of this will be redundant. I'm going to assume everyone did not, and that way we kind of go through some of the base information again. So we're going to start off just kind of talking about a reopening plan, the 4 or 5 kind of highlights in it. And then, as I said last week, we're going to release a new plan every Monday with any changes or additions. And we had about 9 additions and changes to the plan. So I'm updating it, literally just got done with it. So it will be emailed to all parents within a half hour of this conference being done. If you want to copy yourself, just put your email address in the chat and I'll email it to you directly. And then we're also going to post it on our webpage as well as our Facebook. So you'll be able to get it. So we'll go through those changes, and then Ms. Landman will talk from a health perspective, and then we'll simply take any questions. Feel free to type any questions into the chat at any time, and we'll stop and answer those questions. We want to make it as interactive as we can. And or if you want to, you can unmute and ask the question directly. So, and it is being recorded. Last time I thought it was being recorded, it was not. This time it definitely is, and we will post it via YouTube or something so you can refer back to it if you want to. So in terms of the highlights of the plan, first one, and it's an important one, and I'm very happy for this, is we're going to be able to let all students come back for all 5 days. Many school districts have to go with a hybrid because they can't put all the students 6 feet apart. But we were able to put all the students that attend Dayton and still keep them all 6 feet apart. We are going to start on August 25th, which is our scheduled start time. And we're going to do it in a staggered start. So we're going to do a soft start over 3 days. And so day 1 on August 25th will be first graders, 6th graders, and 9th graders. And that allows us to check out our safety protocols and procedures to make sure that they work and to figure out the ones that aren't working and to fix those. And it allows us to kind of have a more intimate talk between the principal and between the teachers and an entire class. We're going to get all the freshman class together in the auditorium because we can keep them 6 feet apart. And we're going to talk about what the school is going to be like this year. So day 1 will be first grade, 6th grade, 9th grade. Day 2 will be 2nd and 3rd grade, 7th grade, and 10th grade. And then day 3, which is Thursday, is going to be 4th and 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th and 12th grade. And then day 4 on Friday, all grades will come. When you're out, especially at the older levels, we're going to give you an assignment for the days that you aren't in session and ask you to do some, answer some questions, do some reflections, things like that to kind of help us with where you've been for 5 months and how things have been going, and kind of help us assess how we can best help you learn this year. The next one is that all students will be 6 feet apart in the classroom at all times, and that masks are to be required. And I say that, and there's some areas where they won't be, and this has come up. So when we're outside, for example, at the grade school level, when Mr. Strong has the kids outside for PE, he's going to keep them 6 feet apart, and they will not have to wear a mask. If they are inside a classroom and they're going to do a group activity which causes a group of 3 or 4 of them to have a quick conversation for 5 or 10 minutes, they'll still be able to stay, they'll be able to get within 6 feet of each other as long as it's only for a few minutes. Because the guidance from the health department is that a kid, if you can't be within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, then what we aren't going to do is put on a timer 14 minutes and 59 seconds. But we are going to try and keep it to 5 or 10 minutes and allow some group activities and things like that. But for the most part, we'll give a little bit of leeway to kindergarten to 2nd grade, but for the most part, when you're in your seat, unless you're taking a drink of water or need to adjust or something, everyone is wearing a mask. And then the last key change over previous years is our end time. At the grade school level, we're going to get out at 2 o'clock. And at the middle high school level, we're going to get out at 12:30. So I'll first go with the grade school. All during the school day, teachers get preparation time, planning time, and they get about 45 minutes each day. And the way a grade school gives them planning time is with the use of specialists. So in previous years, Dayton had a computer specialist, a PE teacher, and a music teacher. And they rotated in, and every single day, at some point during the day, every class was taken to a special, and then that teacher was given prep time. They could work on their own. It's much more difficult this year because if we have 3 specialists, then we're taking them into 3 different areas. And we have no way of supporting our kids who need to stay home for an underlying condition or parent or grandparent underlying condition. And so by going at 2 o'clock, by ending at 2 o'clock, we're going to have everyone's planning time from preschool through senior. Every teacher will have planning at the end of the day. And so that allowed us to redeploy Ms. Farrell at the grade school level. Instead of a computer teacher, she's going to be the distance learning person that's going to support all the K-5 students that are on distance learning. So that's the reason we went with a 2 p.m. Release date. At the middle high school, we had 2 challenges. One is, we're a small school, we're a lean school in terms of staff. And if I give all of the middle and high school teachers a 30-minute duty-free lunch, which I legally need to, and we all need lunch, then I have 200 kids, or in the case if I separated between high school and middle school, 100 or so students that would be out without masks on for 30 minutes every day. And that created and so is Martha, accepting a reasonable risk, because there's nothing that will protect us completely unless we all lock ourselves in our house. But we need to have a reasonable risk. And I felt putting 100 or 200 students in the outside even, but close together without masks on, was an unreasonable risk. So by going out at 12:30, we feed students at 12:30, give them a sack lunch. We're going to be sack lunch at the start of the school year for sure for K-12. And we give them a sack lunch. And then the library at the high school is going to be open. So if you have a situation where there's a 6th grader and they need to wait for a younger student to get out at 2 o'clock, or they're a 6th grader and the parent says, I prefer them not to be home, or some of our middle school teachers at a minimum, probably high school also, will keep some students between 1 and 2 to do some intervention. For a variety of reasons, we'll have buses go at 12:30, but if you are a middle or high school student that need to stay on campus, we're going to host them all in the high school library. And they can eat lunch there, and then they can go see a teacher if they need to, or they can continue to work until 2 o'clock and then take the bus home. So if you're a middle or high school, you can take a bus home at 12:30, or you can take a bus home at 2 o'clock. So those are, that's the 2 different changes in terms of start times. So I'll stop there before I go into what the changes are. And does anyone have any questions on that? I'll just kind of wait a second, see if you type in the chat, and if you do, I can come back to it. So going back to the changes as we fine tune the plan, and I'll just go through them. They're not in any particular order. The first one is Ms. Brown and her staff developed a master schedule last week. And so what they're doing is we're going to have 4 classes a day. We're not going to ask kids to do 7 classes a day and move 6 times. The benefits of 4 times is you only move 3 times, and we can go a little bit more extended time. We have about 60 so minutes per class. So on the first day will be periods 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then on the alternate day is going to be periods number 1 again, as well as periods 5, 6, and 7. And the thought is that by getting out at 12:30, the students still have 2 more hours of school. We're releasing them a couple hours early. So the expectation from the teachers, they're going to assign work that's going to require 90 to 120 minutes of work at home to complete. And the first period class, they're going to meet twice. The first day we'll get the lecture, And the second day, they'll get the homework, if you will, the at-home work. And for first period, that will be done at school. On the first day, periods 2, 3, and 4 will be given work to be done that night. And then the next day, when you have periods 5, 6, and 7, they'll be given homework to do that night. So each student at the middle and high school will have homework from 3 classes every day when they get released at 12:30. So that is the master schedule is in there. The second one is I put in there facial recognition. There was some concerns about that. And it turns out that the 3 thermal scanners we bought, I can't even connect to a printer. And so in order to verify that everyone gets their temperature taken, then I would have to, connect all 3 of them to separate screens and then bring up, and it would just be a listing on the screen, and it'd be very cumbersome. And so until they release the software, which allows us to print a report, we're going to go with, we're still using the thermal scanners, but we're going to have 2 staff at every entrance. And 1 staff will just kind of watch the kids walk through. Those of you who participate in registration kind of see it goes pretty quickly. It's within 2 seconds. You get within 2-3 feet of it. And then the second person will simply check a name off. And so when school starts, we'll find out who hasn't been checked off. And if they didn't get their temperature taken, we'll pull them out of class and let them know that after this, they have to walk past the temperature. So that's the change in facial recognition. We are not using the facial recognition feature as of right now. The third one is potential splitting up elementary lunches. We, originally the plan called us to have everybody eat in their classroom, and then everybody K-5 would go out to a 30-minute recess all at the same time. And that got pretty challenging. Plus, when I was a grade school principal at Lynn Ritzville, most of my discipline was in the last 10 minutes of a 30-minute recess. Kids get overtired, they run around, they goof off, and then after 20 minutes, they're about ready to go in. And so by dividing up lunches, we're looking at, I talked to the staff today, it looks like we've got a good plan where we can have 2 lunches. We're going to have kindergarten, 1st, 2nd together, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th together. And we're going to host them in the cafeteria. And the first 15, 20 minutes is going to be eating lunch. And then the second half, 15 minutes or so, will be out at recess. How we're going to do it, our cafeteria we have 19 lunch tables. We can put 3 kids per table and keep them 6 feet apart. So we can fit 57 kids in our cafeteria. With the kindergarten through 2nd grade, if we go with the 2 lunch option, which is the preferred option, then we'll have 2nd grade eat in their classroom, and everyone else will eat in the cafeteria. We can fit, it looks like, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the cafeteria, only because 3rd grade is our smallest grade in 1 class instead of 2 classes. So we are looking at, like I said, splitting up. And the reason we're splitting it up is to allow kids to eat in the cafeteria, because I think we can do it safely. We weren't sure at the start. And,
Mom's on it.
and to give them less.
It's muted.
And I'm just reading through the list here. Class, we met as a grade school staff today, and
This guy's recording it.
So Dale, your mic is on, just so you know. And so in the spring, we chose the grade school teachers got together and chose the teachers. And then we had a number of students that moved. We had a number of students that are choosing the distance learning option. And so we recalibrated today, made a few changes, minor. And then tomorrow, we're sending out postcards with the teachers' information on it. So that is going out. When the health department walked through last week, they talked about really we shouldn't have drinking fountains, that they are just a source of transfer of the virus, whether it's flu, cold, or COVID. And so we are going to shut down our drinking fountains and/or cover them with a sack of some sort. It won't be a huge issue. Most every classroom at the grade and middle school has a sink. And so we're going to encourage students to bring water bottles. We have a water bottle filler in the middle school, I believe, and we have one in the high school also. And so kids will be able to fill their water bottle. We're going to encourage them to. We'll have spare water bottles if they want to use them. We're also going to have cups for every teacher. And so your student will be able to get a drink of water just like they did before. It just won't be coming from a drinking fountain. And we're going to encourage them. If the brain is hydrated, then the education goes a lot more better. Continue contact with parents for special services and options. We're reaching out. We have probably about 30 parents K-12 we have not been able to reach yet to find out what your options or what you would like to do. So we're going to continue to. Ms. Brown and I on Wednesday, Thursday, for the ones we haven't been able to reach, we're going to go knocking on doors because it's important enough. We really do want to find out whether or not you're going to choose to homeschool your student, if you're going to choose the distance learning option through Dayton, or if you're going to send them to school. So if you haven't got a call from us, please call us or understand that we're going to keep reaching out because we do want to get that solidified. And then we are meeting as a special education staff on Wednesday to kind of go through the next step. We've identified everyone. We've talked to most parents. And we're going to kind of solidify the plan so that we can start right from day one with supporting all our students. And then the last one for this inside the plan is videos of the classroom. So Ms. Brown at the high school, middle school, myself at the grade school, we're going to be filming some teachers this week. We're going to be posting it on Facebook and on our website. And because we want you to see what the classroom looks like with the desks 6 feet apart. And we want your students to see it as well, so they're less surprised when they walk into school. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. The teachers have done a great job of minimizing their footprint. We've removed a lot of tables and desks and bookcases. And so I think the classrooms they certainly look different. You know, I'm not going to lie in any way, shape, or form. Education was not supposed to be served.
I have no questions for this guy.
But at the same time, I do think that is, you'll like it, and I think your students will like it as well. So, and I think that's it from what I had. There's one in the chat, so let me see. Do you have any idea how many students are doing in-school learning and how many are staying at home? At this point, 14 students K-5 and roughly 24 students in the middle and high school have indicated they want to do distance learning. And you know, if you are struggling with an underlying condition and or your person you're living with is struggling with a underlying condition, we aren't going to encourage you to attend school. If you don't want to attend school because you don't think it's right to have to wear a mask, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm still going to try and convince you to go to school, because sitting in a classroom is preferable to sitting at home. But we understand that in certain situations that you can't be exposed to COVID without a huge risk to yourself and or your child. And for those, we're going to absolutely support distance learning. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Martha for any comments you have, Martha.
Guy, I have a question real quick.
Sure.
I heard from a staff member that the first few weeks of school were just going to be like students learning what they need to go distance learning if the school closes down. Can you talk a little bit about what the students will specifically be learning in those first few weeks?
Yep. So there's 4 different things that we're going to do the first 2 weeks. And there's a section in the plan called the first 2 weeks of school. One of them, and it certainly won't take, but a day or two, is what happens if we close.
Okay.
I want kids to say, I want a teacher, okay, visualize you're at the kitchen table. Now open up your laptop and log in. And we want to have, we want kids to be, comfortable with how to log in. We want to have, or at the grade school level, kindergarten, first grade, we're not going to be having them log in. But if the teacher is doing packets in a certain way, we're going to go through that. And so it's there again, that's a key piece, because what we want to do is if on Monday, Martha calls me up and says, hey, you have to close school, I want us to announce it to the staff and the students, and then on Tuesday we just take over and nothing changes. So we want to practice that, because the more you practice, the better you get. The second one is to give students voice, that they've been out for 5 months, and we want them an opportunity to see each other again and talk to each other again and talk to us as a staff. And there's just a lot of power in, these kids haven't seen each other for a long time in some cases, and they've seen each other via Facebook or TikTok or whatever, but it's not the same as in person. And we want to understand as a staff where they are. Did they have a great summer? Didn't they have a good summer? Did they have a good spring? Are they anxious about learning math now? Are they anxious about learning English? And so there'll be, some social emotional, just talking. And then the third one is just your traditional learning. And so, we want to, at some point, pivot. And if you're a senior in high school, you'll pivot this much faster than if you're a kindergartner. But we, within the first 2 weeks, we absolutely will be digging into the learning, because that's the most important. That's what we're here for. And then the fourth one is just kind of the staggered start. The first year or the first day that you're here, we're going to be, at the middle high school, they're going to be giving them all a Chromebook. Like I said, we're going to be walking in probably into the auditorium, and then let Ms. Brown talk, and along with the staff, kind of talk all the freshmen together. And so so certainly you're right. We're going to be practicing learning, but it's one of four things we plan on doing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So there's no more in chat, so go ahead, Martha.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I thought I would talk about the numbers countywide of our positive tests, how that affects the school, what numbers the Department of Health and school has asked me to watch to gauge an outbreak in our community and what that means to the school as we go. So first, for the numbers for today, is since COVID has started, we've tested 468. Positive and recovered from COVID are 12 in our county. Positive right now is 0, which is a great number. That means we've had 0 positive cases from Columbia County residents in the last 14 days. So even if you're tested out of county, the positive test comes back to our county. It goes off your residence. Out of county positive and recovered is 4. The reason we're tracking those here in Columbia County, those 4, and the reason we track those and recovered because they were related to a Columbia County case. So that's why they're tracked separately on our website. Negative 447. As of this morning, we had 4 pending tests. We're waiting for results of those tests, and then we've had 1 death in our community. These numbers are important because the positive number is what the Department of Health has asked us to do for a guideline. So there's on coronavirus.wa.gov, there's a assessment dashboard. And this assessment dashboard has basically they're telling us it's a math problem that only 20 cases per 100,000 people, which doesn't leave us very many cases for the 4,500 people in Columbia County to be over the number that they're looking at for closing. And they have 3 stages for the number that's on the assessment dashboard. If we're below 25, they say we should open to everything. If we're between 25 and 74, then they suggest that we do a staggered open or a open of elementary and possibly close junior high and high school. And then high risk, if we are over 75, our number on the website, then that's what the state has. Now we have those are guidelines. Because we're such a small county, we have to look at those numbers because 1 or 2 numbers would put us over. And it's when Guy and I will talk about these numbers on probably a daily basis, depending on when the positives come in. It will be whether the positive maybe is directly related to the school or not. So that positive case that came in might be somebody in our community that has no relation to the school. They live here or they rent here and they work here or work out of county and have no kids in school. Then the school's not in danger then for that one positive. Now that number that I just talked about might go up above our 25, but I can justify with the Department of Health that it's not affecting our school. If that number of positive cases is 2 or 3 or 4 in our school system, that the kids are positive in our school system, and then they're connected to other kids in the school system, then we have a different conversation. Then that's more like the Department of Health classifies an outbreak in the school has 2 students getting COVID-19 in 2 different classrooms and are totally not related. So not related meaning no, not family related, not friends hang out together, not parents hang out together, they just don't, those 2 families just don't intermingle. And that would be considered an outbreak because now I have 2 different situations of direct contacting that I have to see how many people have been in direct contact with those kids. With the kids staying 6 feet apart, that's helping us because the question we ask the most is, are you 6 feet apart for 15 minutes or more? Obviously that question is different to a 2nd grader than it is to a 7th grader to an 11th grader. And the really challenge with this is I'm not gonna know the day they get sick. It's gonna be 4 or 5 days out. Let's say my child is not feeling good, my 2nd grader is not feeling good today. I'm gonna keep them home from school. It's been a couple of days. Boy, they just don't seem like they're feeling right. It's just different than it's been before. I'm gonna go get them tested. I'm gonna wait another day for that test to come back, day or 2 days. We're getting all of our tests most normally within 2 days around here. So all of a sudden it's Friday, right? The child started feeling sick on Sunday. My question, what's going to happen is the test is going to come back positive to the health department, not to the school. And we will have access to, when they go get tested, they'll leave a phone number. We will contact that phone number, which is hopefully the parent of the child, and then be talking to them about direct contacts with that student. And then we will probably ask permission from that parent if we can talk to the teacher of that class, because the teacher is going to have an idea of who the direct contacts are at school, possibly more than the parent would. So if it's when they get sick, we go minus 2 days from the day they got sick. So if they started getting sick on a Sunday, we didn't get the test back till Thursday or Friday, we're gonna call the parent and ask them last Friday, who were they around for 15 minutes, less than 6 feet, okay? And then we're gonna try to get those direct contacts and do our contact investigation. And our whole goal is to decide on the air of caution because we don't want this spread to multiple classes. We want to contain this as much as possible, and we don't want the spread to multiple classes. But that's kind of the process we will go through in a very short form. The process we'll go through if there's a positive test. When they're pre-screening the kids, when they come in and get their temperature and ask them how they're feeling that day, they have to have more than one. So they have to have 2 or more of the COVID-19 symptoms. Okay, so 1 would be a temperature. If they had a temperature that day of 100.4, and that's the CDC requirement is 100.4. And then they would have to have another one of the COVID-19 symptoms. So that's kind of how we gauge, and the school will gauge whether they're sent home for COVID-like symptoms or they're sent home for something else versus allergies, fall allergies or something like that. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a rundown of where to look for the numbers. The numbers that I just gave you are on our website at columbiaco.com every day. Go to departments and public health, and then they're on our Columbia County Public Health Facebook page. We try to get them out every morning so that you can see when we have a positive in our community. And then the most important part is that if you get a call from public health, please answer that call, because that will keep us in school. If I have to we have to ask you questions of whether you're in direct contact with somebody. We will follow all HIPAA guidelines, but we want to make sure that we side on the side of caution and make sure everybody stays home and quarantines for 14 days if they're in direct contact, so other students in the school don't get sick and we have a whole different problem. And we sure don't want these kids sick with COVID or any community member. If the kids go to grandma's house after school or something like that, it could really spread fast. So we're taking all the precautions. I appreciate working with Guy and the school setting up as safe as possible. And my goal is, if I had any words of advice, I would say stay close to home this first month. Let's get through the first month of September of school. Let's really be aware as parents who were around for that 15 minutes within 6 feet. And let's keep these kids in school as long as possible, because that's the best thing for them. So I'm open to any questions that you might have.
Yes, Martha, this is Lucas. If a student in a class does come down with COVID, is the county or the school going to do asymptomatic testing for that class, or is it just going to go on a little investigation to see whether or not we need to?
That'll be on a case-by-case basis. And I think it also it will make a difference on what grade that's in. Because the first graders are going to be a little bit harder to social distance on a day-to-day basis. Then I'm hoping our 7th graders and 11th graders get the message and are really a lot more aware of that 6 feet as we go along. So that'll be on a case-by-case basis, and it won't be, there'll be some option for testing, and right now anybody can go get a test, and I see that. So if there's any parent that is concerned about some asymptomatic testing, they will be encouraged to go get tested. The student will get tested.
I have a question. Now, you are recording this, so we're going to have a link so we can go back and listen to it, so we can get those times and of the classes, because I had a hard time getting the link to get me on here, so I missed the beginning of this. So
Yeah, it definitely is being recorded.
awesome. And tomorrow's registration, is that in person?
Yes, the registration is in person by last name. I think that tomorrow is the last day, and then there's 2 open days. I think Wednesday and Friday is open for whoever might have missed it. We're in the multi-purpose room.
Tomorrow. I just was double checking that it was in person.
Okay. Yeah, it is in person, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Good. And then we have one question here in chat. Should more than one student show up to school with a fever, will they be put in separate isolation rooms or the same? At the grade school, my office is now an isolation room. And when you walk in the grade school, my desk is literally when you first walk in. And what better way to greet the students? And so and it has a window in for Zarabeth and Tracy to watch the kids. So the first child that we need to wait for parents to pick up will go there. And then the second child will go in the health room. And then the third child will go into Mr. Strong's office. So at the high school, middle school, Ms. Brown's still figuring that out. There'll definitely be an isolation room separate from the health room. And no, we will not put the students together while we wait for parents to pick up. You want to add anything, Martha, to that?
No, I think you have a great plan at the schools.
Our face shields be still considered instead of cloth masks. Cloth masks are preferred, but face shields, certainly we have a couple of students that are hearing impaired, and and so in those cases we're going to be asking staff to wear a face shield. And we have certain situations where a student won't wear a mask, but they might wear a face shield. But I think that cloth masks are safer. Is that a fair? Okay.
Yes, yeah, that's, the confusion on the masks and the face shields is, the OSPI original guidelines came out in June and it said, face shields. And then when, Governor Inslee came out in July, he recommended, required masks, in any common areas and anybody, that is in a room with somebody else. And so that's why we're suggesting masks for the kids, unless needed, for the face shield.
And we're going to have plenty of each on hand. Martha's given us some cloth ones. We have, 10,000 or so disposable ones. And so we're hoping to, we have teachers making them, parents can, bring them. We're hoping that a student will kind of find out, it's surprising how sometimes the most comfortable one is the disposable one. And if that's the case and we want to give a disposable one out to a kid every single day, that's fine with me. So we're kind of hoping to kind of, figure out what's best for everybody in terms of the type of cloth mask. Because as you guys well know, a bandana to a, N95 and everything in between. A couple things I would say, follow up on Martha's remarks. One is if you divide 4,059, which is number of county residents, or 4,500 or something, into 100,000, you get roughly the number 20. Which means on the scale that Martha was talking about between 25 and 75, every one case in Columbia County is 20. So, and the key thing is if we get more than 5 cases, it makes it much more difficult for Martha to justify keeping the school open. And so that's why it's, really important that we try and keep the number of infections down. And then the other thing, and I'll talk about going home sick versus being in quarantine. And then Martha, maybe you can correct me where I'm wrong. If a student goes home sick, then we're going to talk to the parents and we're going to recommend based on your own, what you think, and we'll give you our opinions, whether you should go get a COVID test or go see your doctor. And but if you go home sick and you have no fever, you have a fever, and then after you haven't had a fever for 72 hours, you can come back to school. We're not requiring you to get a COVID test. What we're saying is that it would give you peace of mind and the student peace of mind, and the county has made it really easy to get a test. If you have COVID, then you have to recover from COVID. And what Martha has said in earlier times is after 4 or 5 days, if you're fever free and you're feeling okay, you can go back to school. The big difference, and this is non-negotiable from the staff on down to the students from the health department, is if you get quarantined, you're out for 13 days. And so let's go back to Martha's case. If there's a second grader who came down with COVID and they found that the teacher had been within 6 feet of that student for 25 minutes and 3 other students, then that teacher and those 3 students are home for 14 days with you can't come back within 14 days. And so that's why it's really important that we're going to concentrate on as a staff, and I'm going to concentrate in the students, saying keeping within that 15 minutes so that you don't get excluded and quarantined and then have to be at home for 14 days.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Correct. Guy, everything you said was correct. A couple of things I might add is, one is I've talked about that assessment website earlier. I did forget to mention that they are doing some maintenance to that website this week. And so the numbers will not change. The only numbers that will change is on the data if we get a positive or something like that. But the actual percentage on the assessment website will not change this week. They hope to have it up and running again by the end of the week. That's what, and to follow your 14-day quarantine, Guy, is that it's so important. That's why it's so important for us to make sure that we connect and direct contact each kid that is, if there's a positive student, that we get a hold of each kid, each other student that is connected to them. Because if they continue to stay in school, whether they're symptomatic or asymptomatic, they could very well be a carrier. And all of a sudden we could easily, if they talk to somebody, had brothers in 2 different classrooms and hung out with their friends and didn't tell us, we could really easily have a lot of students possibly affected, maybe not sick, but affected with the COVID, that they could spread the COVID in our community, and then we'd all be in trouble. We'd have to close school in that case to get everything, get the COVID-19 cases within our community back within a reasonable guideline that the Department of Health would be able to allow us to open again.
There's a question came in for you, Martha, via chat. What will happen if a teacher tests positive? Will their class become distance learning, or will there be a substitute teacher assigned?
Well, if the teacher's positive on my side, we would just do contact tracing if they were in direct contact with a student and needed special help in the couple of days that they would be in contact with that student. Whether you have a substitute teacher lined up or whether that would be distance learning for the 14 days, Guy, is your decision.
But bottom line is, if a teacher tests positive and they do the contact tracing through the county health, has determined that no, she was not, or he was not within 6 feet of any student within 15 minutes, then that class does not go into automatic distance learning. It just continues, and we have a substitute teacher come in.
Correct.
Any other questions? Either put them in chat or go ahead and ask them.
So just going off of that question there, Guy. So is the teachers not passing out any type of homework packets or anything else like that? Would that not considered being, contact traceable, i.e. a teacher handing out homework and grabbing homework? And, I understand that we're wearing masks, this and that, but it can also be droplets on a piece of paper that can cause contagion. Would that not eliminate that class from being at home for 14 days?
You want to answer that, Martha?
Yeah, it's just the way, it all depends on the way we hand out the paper. We got to think of everything different. So it depends on how we hand out the paper. That teacher is most likely not going to hand out the paper one student at a time. They're going to be sitting they're going to be all prepared ahead of time, and they're going to be sitting in a pile or spread out on the desk that they can all go by and pick up their own piece of paper or own packet. Just like we did when, follow some of the guidelines that we did when school was closed and how they did packets at that time would be my understanding. Correct, Guy?
No, I think that's a great question, and we'll make sure I'll pass that on to the teachers, because that's that is something that's easy to do, and then that way we eliminate that. Because if a teacher did hand out something to all the students, then we would, by definition, probably have to quarantine that whole class, so we don't want to.
Or gloves.
Or the teacher, yeah, that's true. We're gonna have gloves available in every classroom. So I guess that's the other option. I'll write it down for the teachers can use gloves and then throw away the gloves. So we have another question. What is the details for what is considered sick? With COVID systems being very similar to the common cold, are we as parents to treat any symptoms as if it was COVID and keep them home, or what is the expectation? So the expectation this year is if they have a fever, we want you to keep them home. If they are actively sick and have a huge cold, we want you to stay at home unless you want to go see your doctor and or go get a test for COVID, because that way that they're not COVID. Because unfortunately, a bad cold and COVID can look the same. On the other hand, if a student has allergies, then we're going to get to know that, and we're not going to, if we see them sneezing or coughing or anything like that, we're not going to send them home, because we will know that they have allergies. Did you want to add anything? What is the details for what is considered sick? You want to add anything, Martha?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is obviously the best advice right now, especially as we go through this first month and learn the kids that do have allergies and learn certain situations, that we err on the side of caution. The second one is a really common thing with COVID-19 that it will be, hopefully be a question that's asked, is do you feel different? Almost everybody we've come in contact with that has got COVID-19, they've had the cold, but this one feels different. They've had head congestion, but they've had headaches, but this one feels different. And those are the questions we're going to ask the kids is, okay, if you have a stomach ache today, you know, is there any signs that it feels a little bit different? And that would be something that you could ask at home too, when your child is sick, that to maybe give you an inkling of that it could be possibly COVID, or it could be just their normal sickness that they get once in a while, or anxiety or whatever else goes along with some of our symptoms. It is hard because the symptoms are the same. And my suggestion, let's get through September and err on the side of caution, and then let's see how that goes as we go into October and November. To start really safe and keep it as safe as possible. All these other communities that we are the safest community around, and we are doing a great job. We've done such a great job of protecting our elders in our community and really being conscious of, you know, the 27% of our community that is elderly. We just need to take that and use that same precautions for our school kids, and we will all be safe.
Another question came in. Are teachers prepared to help instruct individual students online if they're in quarantine in addition to teaching in class? And I would answer that the school will be prepared to help instruct those individual students, which the teacher will be part of that, but we're not going to, we don't want to make it unfair on the teacher or too burdensome. So, and it'll be, you know, it's one that we started a conversation on. It'll be part of next Monday's update on how we're going to do it, because we don't want to be surprised if 3 students get quarantined. We want to have a process down. At the grade school level, I think that it will be, Ms. Farrell will be kind of taking the lead on that, working with the classroom teacher. And, but we'll kind of have those details next week. And we will, you know, hold the student harmless, because, you know, chances are that they might be home for 14 days and never develop COVID, and we don't want to penalize them any more than they already are being penalized. Anyone else have any questions, or put it in chat, or go ahead and ask?
Do you have a preschool program in place as well?
A preschool? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And certainly call the school. We can put you in contact with the teacher.
I was just curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Is there going to be a way to show the parents the online programs that the teachers are expecting to put the kids' homework on? Because the springtime was a disaster.
Yes, we are looking at different ways of educating the parents, so that in addition to educating the students on how to do it, to, you know, educate the parents, we're also going to, which we started to do in the spring here, try and get a common platform. So if you have a 3rd grader, a 7th grader, and a 10th grader, that they're all tracking the assignments in a similar fashion. But yeah, and I would say that the springtime, I'm hoping we never go to distance learning, but I've told the staff I would expect us to be out for 30 days or so throughout the course of the year. I'm hoping that you'll see a vast improvement over the springtime, only because the springtime we were thrown in as a crisis. And I think, you know, Dayton was similar to Kalama. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to the kids. They went home one day and they never came back. And so, whereas this time we've been able to plan ahead of time, and so it should be much smoother. Won't be the same as being in a classroom, but it should be much better than springtime.
And how are you going to bring in PE and music on those, being in class?
So PE is going to be primarily outside, and you know, at the grade school level, we are going to incorporate it when it's lousy weather. You know, they'll be able to. The kids might learn yoga. They might learn some other things that does not make them sweat, and they can keep 6 feet apart and wear a mask even and still be okay. But primarily PE is going to be done outside, because we don't have to worry about a mask as long as they're kept apart. both at the middle high school as well as the grade school. Music is a bigger challenge. We're going to have a virtual middle school band and a virtual high school band, and emails going out to all 5th grade parents that Mr. Summer is willing to do a virtual 5th grade band as well. So right now, the thing is that kids get out, middle and high school kids get out at 12:30. Middle school band will be at 1:30, and they'll all tune in on Zoom. And then high school band will be at 2:15, and then 5th grade band, if we have it, will be at 3 o'clock. In addition to that, in the morning, we are going to have music available. It's going to look different. In the 4th grade, we might, have a strings class. There might be, at the kindergarten, 1st grade, it might be more about music and movement. But and it's not going to be the same. We can't sing, and we can't have wind instruments. That's the reality. So it certainly won't be the same, but we aren't going to not have it. It's just going to look a little bit different. Any other questions? Good. Well, I appreciate time. Like I said before, my cell phone's in the packet, so feel free to call me. Feel free to call Ms. Brown at the office. Feel free to stop by as well. I had one more question come in. Previously, 4th graders were allowed to play an instrument. Is this not the case this year? And this is where, Scott is really looking at, do I want to have all the 4th graders learn keyboard and guitar? Do I want to have all the 4th graders learn a string instrument? It's kind of still be determined, because you're right. Previously, 4th grade was when we introduced them to band, and then this year we can't do any wind instruments on campus. And it's difficult if you've never played an instrument before to have a virtual or a Zoom-based band. So we're gonna let 4th graders play an instrument. It just may not be the one that they're used to or that they want. And then hopefully next year, 5th grade, they'll be able to play their favorite instrument. Any other questions? Well, thanks again for the time. You guys have a great day. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you.